Aloha and welcome back to Aina Bear Farm. It's been a little while since we've had time to shoot a video, but we've been busy. So I wanted to give you an update on our kitchen garden on the slope and then show you some of the other things that we've been able to plant in our front area on this, fairly gentle slope, but slope nonetheless. And so if you've seen some of our videos before, you've seen the way we kind of planned this out, the way we designed it. It is on contour. We have great drainage here, but we really want to slow water down as much as possible and just try to make this a successful area for catching any erosion, or basically stopping any erosion, so that we can build up the good amendments that we put in the soil, as opposed to just having it wash down the hill and off into the neighbor's property. And so I just wanted to tell you about a few of the things that we've done since our last video. We did put in, as you can see, a kind of quick fix trellis for our beans here. Just simple cattle panel. And if you've seen my videos from before, you probably know I'm big on recycling things. These are just things I found around the farm. Took these out of the pasture from where previous owners had cattle out in the pasture. I don't have cattle since we're converting it to a food forest. So I'm able to reuse things like this. I'll also probably reuse some of this as our external fencing, which we'll put in. Maybe that'll be our next big update video. We'll show some of that. But for now, this is just something for the lima beans to climb on. As you can see, they've grown a bit. They are kind of struggling with the wind. This is a windy spot, so every time I pick them up and put them on the trellis, I come back out to find that they've fallen back off again, but that's okay. Eventually they'll be hardy enough and strong enough and big enough that I'll be able to kind of wrap them around a little bit more, and they'll stay on there a little better. As far as this row goes, a lot of our Leucaena is up, which you'll see as you come by, and you'll also see we finally scored some comfrey, one of the favorite do-it-all permaculture plants. It's one of those plants that it's kind of hard to find sometimes because you don't really buy it. You just have to ask around until you find somebody who has it. And luckily, I found somebody who had a lot of it, and they wanted it not in the place where it was. So I was able to go and dig a bunch of it out. And so we've got, remember, this is kind of our buffer row. So nitrogen fixing Leucaena, and now we've got the comfrey in there as well. So this eventually is going to provide tons of mulch that we can do chop and drop with, add it to our other garden beds to just feed them with good nutrients and minerals. So as you walk by, I'll kind of show you some of the other things that we've got going on. As you can see, the Leucaena and the comfrey's there. We talked about the lima beans. This stuff is all coming along. Just further down the row, we've got our purple bush beans. Those are doing good. There's actually a couple of beans already sprouted on there. So that means that it kind of tells me that it's time to put in the next set so that we can succession plant, and while we're eating those beans, we'll have new beans on the way so that we won't ever run out of beans. Some of our previous rows back there, we also had some okra and some squash that's coming in. Those are doing pretty well. Down here we planted quite a few flowers, and not a lot of them survived. We've got zinnias, and what else did we put down here? Nasturtium, and we only got a few survivors, so maybe we'll reseed, we'll see. And then as you can see over towards the middle, we've put in some pineapples. We've been saving the heads of the ones we were eating. We've got both white and yellow pineapples mixed with some green bunching onions over there, so we'll see how those do. And then on the barrier, this was a really well appreciated donation from a neighbor, red tea leaf. And so this will be the exterior kind of plant-based fence for now, and also hopefully act as a wind screen. Like I said, it's a really windy site. We're going to try to reduce the wind as much as possible. As those get bigger and fill out a little more, I think they'll do a pretty good job. I'll give you a quick update on our papaya circle. Remember when we first put this in, we had a little video about it. We've got lots of papayas coming up here to choose from. And so, I don't know, maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll end up in the position to start thinning some of those. We can evaluate which are the winners, and put in some aster in between there, just some nice stuff to flower and fill the space out, hold the grass at bay a little bit, choke out any other weeds. And we continue to add some compost to the pit there, and it's starting to break down pretty nicely, so that once the roots of those papaya are a little bit dry, you'll be able to reach down in there and grab the nutrients of the compost and really take off. All right, got a lot of rocks on the lawn here. Digging out of the garden, we'll find some good things to do with those. One of the things I could show you on the camera, cool thing on the Big Island and lots of islands in Hawaii, you end up with lava rock, which is very porous. It's got all these little spaces in there. One of the things that's cool about that in the soil is these spaces become pockets for bacteria and microorganisms. And so little pieces of rock in your garden can actually be really beneficial. Almost like biochar in a way. I mean, it's not going to break down like biochar and be quite as beneficial, but just in creating these little pockets for happy microbial life. So that's kind of cool. We were able to find some dwarf coconuts. I don't remember. I think I was looking for Samoan dwarf coconut, and I ended up with some other.
It was like a
island.
dwarf hybrid coconut tree.
Yeah. So, but they are dwarf. That's the important thing. So these are going to put on fruit at about hand height for me. And eventually they will get really big, which I didn't know. I found this out recently. But the point is that for about 10 years, they'll stay at a very reachable length for you to harvest fruit from. And I guess after 10 to 15 years, they all of a sudden just kind of shoot up, and then they're full scale 30, 40 foot coconut trees. So we'll see. I mean, that's a long time down the road. In the meantime, I'll look forward to lots of green coconuts for coconut water, and then maybe let some of them mature a little bit more for the super nutritious coconut oil. But love some coconuts. And the funny thing is, we're at about 1,000 feet, and there is something kind of funny about seeing coconuts at 1,000 feet. The seed is this big, so it doesn't naturally roll uphill 1,000 feet. Birds don't carry it anywhere. So it's a little bit out of its element up here. But it has a lot of the things that coconuts need to survive. It's got really good drainage. It's got mild weather, of course. Like, we really don't get much cooler here than they do it at sea level or closer to sea level. Plenty of sun. Yeah, so I think they're going to do pretty well. And we'll just keep feeding them and see how it goes. When we got 3 of those, I'm pretty excited. That's a good amount to at least get started with. And then maybe when I get some mature coconuts, I can sprout from seed and we'll add to our collection. Our dwarf banana is doing really well. So this was the first banana pit that we dug. We're still adding some fresh compost. We do sort of like a rotation. The compost is breaking down really well. I don't know if it is actually feeding this yet or not. It's possible that it's sinking down into the soil, but something is making this banana really happy. I also feed most of my fruit trees with diluted urine about once every couple weeks or so, a ratio of about 1 to 10. And so, if you don't mind that sort of thing, pee in a bucket, save your urine, and you get great results. A lot of nitrogen in urine, and then a lot of other trace minerals. As long as you're pretty healthy and you have healthy kidneys, it's a totally sterile, very healthy, good, organic fertilizer, and of course it is completely free. So I don't know, that could be it. It could be the banana pit. Maybe it was just some of the nutrients that came, because I did get this potted. This is a dwarf apple banana. It was a cultivar that I really wanted, but something is helping it do really well. We've got these Song of India plants that we put in down here. If you're not familiar with those, they're just somewhat of a common like tropical hedge style plant. I put them down here to help them a little bit as a windbreak. When the banana gets a little bigger and starts putting out bananas, I don't really want it taking the full brunt of the wind from down here. I did partially put it there as eventually when I have lots of banana circles, they'll act as a bit of a windbreak for the vegetable garden, which is uphill. But in the meantime, as we get closer to the road and I get down into like what I consider to be an unproductive zone, I'm putting some other things in that are fast growing. You know, they just add another bit of aesthetic and maybe some habitat for some different things. But we'll see how they do. These kind of like the tea leaves are supposedly you just pop them in the ground and they start to root in a couple weeks and then you'll see new growth. So hopefully those will do well. And then finally, we have a new banana circle. I don't know, maybe 20 feet from the other one. And these were gifted to me, I guess. You know, bananas, if you're not aware, you have the main stalk, and as it gets bigger, it starts to produce offshoots, which in a lot of cultures they refer to it as like the baby or the child,
Keiki.
pup even. So yeah, here in Hawaii, we refer to it as a keiki, which is the child in Hawaiian. So I got these keiki off of a mother plant, and these are, I can't remember the name actually, but they are locally popular. I don't know, it's a native. It gets confusing when you talk about what's actually native in Hawaii and what's not. But they're very locally popular, and they're not commonly found in other places. So we'll say that. They're orange flesh inside. When you peel them, the actual banana is a really dark orange. And I've actually never tried one, but I hear they're delicious. So
I want to try one too.
yeah, they're free. Why not? So as you can see, we started another banana circle. More compost going here. Probably dump our compost here for the next couple weeks or so, just to build it up a little bit.
You made this yesterday.
I will turn back this way so that you know, you can look back uphill in the garden. So as you can see, we've got about half of the space left, maybe a little bit more than half, depending on how you divide it up. So yeah, we'll be putting in 3 more rows just like the ones that we have started. A lot of those rows will be crops that I intended to start a little bit later, as our temperatures get a little bit cooler. It's Hawaii, so we're not going to have like fall like we do on the continent, like we did back in Maryland. But it'll be a little cooler, a little more rainy, and that'll be more favorable for a lot of like the leafy greens, kales, lettuce, carrots, some of those types of things. And so some of those rows will be added hopefully within the next month and a half. And then towards the bottom, we'll finally kind of dig out in the corner a fairly large space with a big berm down on this bottom corner to put in lots of kalo, taro, and have like a nice kind of wet, really organically rich, soupy area for the kalo, because it really likes that.
Marshlands.
That'll be our plan. We'll continue with the red tea leaves going all the way around the garden, and then we'll get that fence up, which, as you may have heard me talk about in other videos, is for the wild pigs. Definitely want them to stay out. Now that we're getting some crops going, we don't want to tempt them to come in. So I want to get that fence up before any damage is done, because they do damage really fast. And then the last thing that I'll comment on before we wrap up this video is just that we're looking to add amendments to the soil. I have not really found much of a dependable source so far for like just large amounts of organic material, be it compost or mulch or wood chips or anything like that. And so I'm still kind of on the lookout for some of those types of things. So basically everything that we're adding at the moment is is stuff that we're producing here. Like I talked about the comfrey, I talked about the nitrogen fixing Nucina. We've planted some larger nitrogen fixing trees in our food forest. Those will primarily be chop and drop for the guilds and the fruit trees in the food forest. But up here, we'll just continue to add any organic material that we have. After we fill up the banana circle pits with compost, I will start to dig some trenches throughout the vegetable garden rows and then put compost directly in there. We have a banana circle out in the back that we dumped a lot of compost in, and some squash seeds got in there, and the squash that are growing out of them are 5 times as big as the squash that I've been trying to grow up here. So that right there should be enough to tell you that growing squash right out of compost is a winner. And it's a lesson I've learned before back on our farm in DC. The best butternut squash I ever had just was a volunteer growing out of my compost pit. So that's it for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the update. Give us a thumbs up if you're stoked about what we've been doing here. And you add any questions or comments in the comments section. Let us know your thoughts, or especially if you're on island, let us know any resources we could tap into. Hopefully we'll have time to make some more updates soon, and we'll take a look at some more fruit trees that we planted, give you some updates on the food forest. We'll see you back here next time at Aina Bear Farm. Aloha, mahalo.